All right. Today I'm going to venture out from some of my normal tutorial stuff and code things. I'm just going to talk about some ideas, specifically like working in the workplace. And today I'm going to talk about how to share new ideas or to share your own ideas with the leadership. So, in my particular role, I have a supervisor and then I have a director who's over both of us. And so I have a couple of layers that I have to go up in order to get my ideas heard. And then, my director he's still a rung down from the VP level, so he has to go up a level too. So I'm kind of buried here in the hierarchy. And sometimes, well, I'm an ideas person, so I have a lot of ideas. If you've seen the things that I do on my channel, then you can see that I have a lot of ideas. And if you look at my code pen, then I'm always thinking about new things and always considering new ways of doing things, new ways of writing code, or just new ways of expressing things through the web. And so some of my ideas are really good, some of my ideas are really bad, some of my ideas are just kind of too early. So that happens too, but they're always coming. So it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm thinking about new ideas, or I'm bringing things together from two different parts of the world or two different disciplines, and then just kind of how does that fit into the web and things like that. So so I always have a lot of ideas. So if you're like that and you're like me and you work in a corporate environment, it can be a little bit frustrating maybe, because your ideas in your mind are moving so fast, and the corporate structure, the way that a large company or a medium-sized company is built, is not for quick changes but for long-term changes. And so there are long-term directions and strategic directions that are being decided before you got there. They're being executed while you're there, and you have no idea always what's going on, especially if you're buried far down into the hierarchy like I am. I don't always know what all the departments are doing. Very rarely, unless I ask someone, is there a lot of cooperation between the silos, the different parts of the company? So some of my ideas might derail or sidetrack some of those things, is why I'm saying that. So let me talk about real briefly about sharing your ideas with your leadership. Um, a guy who's not here anymore in my company, when I first got here, I had this really big idea that I've been working on before I came to this company. And my present company is a publisher, and my idea is in the line of publishing. So I think it's great. I spent years on it now and connected with people all over the world. And so I'm trying to make it happen. And seems like a fortuitous place to make it happen. But the way I want it to happen is a lot different because I am not running a company. I'm an employee at a company, and before that I was a freelancer, so I was able to just kind of determine directions on that idea. So I brought the idea to him, and he and I were working together on it. And one of the things that he stressed to me was these are really good ideas, but they're not going to hear them. And they're not going to hear them because they're not going in the same direction as the executives have determined the company to go in. So you have two choices. You can either stop working for the company and you can take this idea and run with it and create a startup or whatever. Or if you want to stay inside the corporate structure, then you've got to learn how to maneuver inside of the corporate structure. And so it was some of the best advice that I've ever had. And I wanted to just kind of graphically display what he was talking about. So I have, your idea here, and then this is the predetermined executive direction. So they're going this way, and then they're looking for ideas in this space. Now, if you're, let's group these things. Oh, how do you group it? Control Alt G. So if we pull these things together, this is your idea, and this is the direction your idea is going. Now, if If your idea is moving in a similar line, but it's just a little bit off kilter, you might get them to hear you, because then maybe they'll move their direction to go and connect with yours and begin to move that way. So that's one possibility. But if your direction is here and it's moving away and it's too far removed from the strategic direction that the company is going to be going in, then they're probably not going to hear you. If your idea is like this, to take them in a completely different direction, in fact going the opposite direction, then they're probably not going to hear you, because a lot of time and effort and money has been invested in getting the company moving in this particular direction. So understanding this direction will help you know, is there synergy, is there some sort of parallel between your idea and what you want to do, and then the corporate direction or the corporate strategy. If it's an opposite like this, the executives or the leadership is probably going to tell you, I'm sorry, that idea is just not the direction that we're going to go in. We've already determined that it's going to be this thing. And so unless there is some sort of huge change in the market or the industry or the company in this area right here, where they now need to say, okay, we need to go and make a directional change. So unless that happens in your industry, you're probably not going to be heard in this instance. Now, if your idea, well, let's see if we can, there we go. Now, if your idea comes like here, this is when you're absolutely going to be heard. So has the company been moving in this direction, and is your idea along the same path? If it's along the very same path that the corporate structure is moving toward and the executives have decided, then there's a really good chance that they're going to hear your idea and probably implement your idea if it's a really good idea, or something that they haven't thought about, or it's a solution to a problem that happens right here in the strategic direction or the strategic line that they're moving. If you're here, you're probably going to be heard. This represents an alternative to their present direction, but it's a very close alternative. So maybe it's a feature suggestion, or maybe it's if we just kind of turn this a little bit, because the difference between this and this is pretty small. That's not a huge difference. The company is not making a huge shift. It's maybe just a little bit of a mental shift to do something. But the farther away you get from this line, the more difficult it is for the company to make a new direction and to hear you. Now, I don't know what that line is for your company. Some companies are more agile than others, and maybe this sort of shift is not such a big deal for your company, and they would be happy to, when they get to this point, to make a shift and to make a change. But for some companies, even a shift like this sort of small barrier might be an actual barrier, and they're not able to look at that idea, and maybe they need you to be a lot closer like this in order to be able to change and take your idea on and make a shift in course. So hopefully this helps you to understand like how to come to people. So essentially, if you can bring your idea in line with the executive direction and the strategic direction of the company or your department or your team, then that's going to be seen as a helping idea. If it is opposite, then that's going to be seen as an idea where you have to make a choice one way or the other, and the choice is a lot bigger depending on how big your idea is, and depending on what sort of how does that fit into the strategic direction of the company. Does it mean just a little bit of change? Does it mean a lot of change? Does it mean adding more people? Does it mean changing your stack? Does it mean pulling in new resources, or does it mean more money? So all of those things kind of have to be taken into consideration with your idea. So this is some of the best advice that I've ever gotten. This is the first time I've really worked in a corporate environment. I've mostly worked by myself, and I mostly had to do all the work myself. But now I don't. So my ideas sometimes are too big because they are coming from a place where I had to do a lot. And so I can move very quickly, and I had a lot of control. Here I have less control, and I'm not able to move as quickly. So my ideas have to kind of be broken down, or I have to hold them until I can see that it aligns a little bit more with the executive direction. Or sometimes you can just make sure that you make a connection between these two things. Listen to the words that they're using for their executive direction. Are they using nebulous words to try to get them some general sense of this way? And then can you connect it to concrete ideas when you get to certain points? So if you can do that, also advice that I was given, if you can connect it somehow to the executive direction, even though maybe it's this way, and maybe it's even going a little bit this way at this point. If you can connect this idea to the executive direction, and they don't necessarily have a concrete idea of what this means over here, then maybe they'll see your idea and then they'll begin to change course at this point. So they'll, begin to follow that idea. So that's just a little bit of advice. As a web developer, as a web designer, as a designer, you're probably someone who has a lot of ideas. You're probably reading and watching videos with there's just a plethora of ideas that are being shared all over the web. And so especially if you're a millennial and you're connected into Facebook and Twitter and you're following people who are in the industry and things like that, you're going to be more connected to those new ideas than the executive leadership is. So you're probably going to have a lot of ideas. And if you've struggled with sharing your ideas and feeling like nobody's hearing you, then I hope that this helps you. So try to connect your idea to the executive direction. Figure out what that is, and some companies are better at sharing what the direction of the company is, or the direction of your team, or the direction of your department. Figure out what direction are you going, what are you doing now, and then is your idea a large sea change to that direction, or is it just a minor reorientation to a different place, but along the same lines? So that'll help you determine, how successful your idea is going to be. And waiting for some sort of turmoil, especially if you're wanting to go in a totally different direction, waiting for some sort of crisis or turmoil or a place where nobody quite knows where to go, that's going to be the most effective time to share, okay, let's go this other way, this other direction, because the way that we're going has stopped or changed. So we need new ideas. And so if you're that kind of person, then waiting for those moments in order to share those ideas, or somehow connecting those ideas to the executive direction and saying, you're saying this, but I think this way is probably a little bit better. Well, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, I know this is a little bit different type of video, but I'm just trying to share a little bit of thinking about what kinds of things can I share that might help you in a role of a web developer or a web designer. So if you have any questions or comments, if you like it, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And I think that's it. If you watch my videos and you want to support me on Patreon, I actually have a Patreon page, and so you can donate, on a monthly basis. I have 2 levels now. One is for $1 and one is for $25. So at $1 you can connect with me. I share some things on Patreon that I don't share. More personal things, I share them there, and I don't share them on YouTube. And then at the $25 level, you would be able to have a Zoom conference with me once a month, where we talk about, pretty much whatever you want to talk about. If you wanted to discuss a particular topic about work web development or directions you should go or ways to do things. Or if you want to get into, you know, a little bit more code and things like that, then that's for that level too. And then there's space enough for 10 people at that level. So we would be able to just have a small conference once a month where we just talk about web development or web design or ideas that you might have or questions that you might have. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.